time to wake up. The show is about to start. With lots of stories about poo and a bit of heart. When it comes to Joanne, no, you won't find no faults. But if you mess with the bull, you might get the shots. It's time for Mornin. It's Morning with Bill and Joe. It's time for Mornin. It's gonna be a heck of a show. It's Bill and Joe. It's gonna be a heck of a show. It's Bill and Joe.
Hello and welcome to Mornin with Bill and Joe. I'm Joe.
Schultz, Bill Schultz.
And we have our special guest, our security blanket.
Mike Baker is back again. He was in the CIA. Mike Baker is back again. Could kill you in every way. From covert ops to podcast stops. Joe, where is he today? Mike Baker, security blanket. Mike Baker, Mike Baker, declassifying black files, born in the British Isles. Mike Baker, security blanket.
CEO of, I don't have it in front of me.
Portman Square Group. Joe,
Portman Square Group.
It's a global intelligence firm, for your information. You know, we've only been doing this for a couple
CEO
years.
of some company.
Baker, do you like how I'm playing coy? Like I haven't used you and your services many times before to help me out.
One-stop shop for all things corporate espionage. She's also the host of Black Files Declassified on Discovery
Woohoo.
Science Channel and Discovery Plus. And, guys, our favorite podcast, The President's Daily Briefing. Also, on the side,
you can leave the ing off of there. It's just the
It's
President's Daily Brief. You
Why
guys are
do I
knocking
keep
it out
doing,
of the park.
especially since I have a speech impediment with all things INGs,
Yeah.
according to my parents. I shouldn't be saying those words, period. And welcome back, Mr. Baker. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you after that delightful intro.
Well, I had to save it. Jeez, Joe, still hungover. Well, now she's back from New Orleans. Should we play a quick game? Although I have a feeling, judging from the beautiful oak in the background, probably no doubt close to a personal bar, that it's going to be no less interesting than your place. But Joe, do you want to play where he is? Oh yeah, he's home.
He's at one of his 7 bars that are in his home.
Yeah, I'm at the compound.
However, I would argue he is facing slightly southeast.
I wouldn't
Am
be
I
able
right?
to tell
Am
you
I
where I
right?
am right now on my parents' list.
Let me think about this for a second. Sort of, not really.
Don't
Okay.
give her that.
I was
Don't give it to her.
close.
Yeah.
Of the 4 directions I could choose.
You chose 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm actually in Boise for a short period of time, which I'm actually not even a short period of time. For me, it's quite a stretch. I'm here for about a week and a half without any travel, which is great. I'm loving it. Yeah.
Actually getting in touch with the time, even though we just did some daylight savings. Well, before we get into all of the wonderful, emphasis on wonderful things going on in the world today, the easiest way to do some housekeeping if we haven't seen Baker in a while is to just listen to his latest Joe Rogan episode, because they're all like 5 hours long, so you get a lot of research done.
They're not 5 hours long. They're
about 5 hours. And all I have to, I guess, I don't know how to steer you into this because I have a million questions without trying to rehash a lot of the stuff that you already covered in Rogan's. But camels, ass blisters, Saudi Arabia, what in the hell have you just done to yourself?
Yeah, no, well, I did not suffer from said ass blisters.
You hurt yourself, it sounded like.
I did get injured, yeah. I tore some muscles along my rib cage and kind of the side. And so unfortunately had to tap out early, which was a real pain in itself. But the rest of the guys continued. Look, it was the idea of some colleagues of mine, terrific guys, Howard Leadham and other fellows who said, let's do something big to try to raise awareness and funds for what's called the UK Special Forces Club Benevolent Fund. And the easiest way to describe what that UK Special Forces Benevolent Fund is just to think of wounded warriors, right?
Okay.
So it's the same concept. It's an organization that does everything possible to help military veterans, families in need in the UK. And so, the difference being is that in the US, you've got a lot of these organizations, right? And they're always constantly raising funds, and it's very, they're just much more, I don't want to say sophisticated, but they're more proactive in their ways of trying to raise funds. And in the UK, it's not quite that. So Howard and the gang came up with an idea that let's do something really big. Let's recreate a very famous trek that across the unpassable deserts. In 1917, 3 Arab sheikhs, along with Lawrence of Arabia, led a small Arab army through what was really considered uncrossable deserts in Saudi and Jordan to get from northwest Saudi, essentially, to going up and then across into Jordan and then down into Aqaba, where the Turks were, with the idea that now let's kick some ass. And so they routed the Turks out of that area, and that, created all sorts of opportunity for the creation of the region as we know it. 1,100 kilometers. And we started out, there were 5 of us riders and 10 camels, because you need to give a camel a day off every now and then.
I always say that.
Yeah, it's a labor issue.
Yeah.
And then we had a terrific support team, an amazing support team. And they worked to keep this thing going forward. And so anyway, that's what it was. Finished up. Started in essentially early part of January, finished up in the middle part of February. Wow. And it was an incredible effort all the way around. And it did the job. It raised awareness for the UK Special Forces Club Benevolent Fund, and it raised a decent amount of money. We're still trying. So if anybody's interested, they can go to sfcbf.org, sfcbf.org. Rogan told me I don't have to say www.
I was waiting for the www.
Well, he advised me that might be showing my age.
HTTP /
Yeah. And if you're really, really curious, you can hit me up on my beeper, and I'll send you more details. But thanks for asking. It was an incredible effort on the part of the 4 guys, Tomo and Howard and Craig and James, who finished the trek. Really grinded it out, and it there's no easy way. There's no comfortable way.
Yeah, it sounds
ride
like
a camel for that long, because you're actually moving. You're trying to cover 55 to 60 kilometers a day at a minimum. So you're trotting the whole time, right? You're always moving. It's not like you're walking at some leisurely pace to look at the pyramid, for
At any point, were you tempted to ride side saddle? Because I feel like that would be more comfortable.
Yeah, you actually. That's a really good question, because and very astute. Joanne,
don't give her this.
Thank you.
Don't give her that.
Because they're not really saddles, right?
Sure.
They're pieces of wood roped together called shaddads. And
why have they not updated this?
Well, that's a good question. After 2,000 years, you would think we'll come up with another version, but they don't. And there's no stirrups on these things. It just sits right on the hump of these camels.
How do you not fall off? Jeez.
Yeah, and so what you have to do is, if you just rode like a horse, right? There's no stirrups to take pressure off your legs and everything. So what you do is you hitch one leg around the sort of the front part of the shaddad, and then you kind of tuck your foot underneath your other leg, and then you switch legs, to try to keep the pressure. Oh. It's a process.
It sounds awful.
Yeah, I don't think any of the guys are going to do it again in the near future. So anyway,
are camels like as ornery and bitey and spitty as I've always read? Like, are they kind of?
Yeah, they can be really agnostic about the whole adventure.
Such a diplomatic way of putting it.
But I will say this much: once you're with them, it only took a few days for us to kind of, with our own camels, because we each had to kind of get into a groove, and the camels eventually figured out, okay, I got it. You guys aren't going to give up after half an hour, so might as well you just kind of tuck in and deal with it, and eventually they do become friendlier. I won't say they're always, but it's they're it's a little bit like a horse, right? You gain its trust, and eventually you come to a working arrangement.
So they're essentially Joanne.
Listen, if I were in the desert
There's
for
so
that
many
long,
jokes. There's so many ways to take that, Joanne. And I
That's
totally
true.
appreciate that I didn't do any of them. So
Oh.
but man, that it really makes you think though about what did you say? It was like the early 1900s when that first journey was made.
yeah, 1917, and it took them months, right? Because they had
Sure.
to stop periodically because they were fighting Turks.
Well,
And
also
others.
the butt blisters. I mean, we now have, we're wearing our Lululemon, our athletic wear. I'm sure, you're wearing something to protect yourself. But they didn't have the technology we have. So I imagine that was brutal. I mean, really, anytime you say butt or blister, that's all I can focus on.
Yeah,
It's one thing if you lose, like you get a blister, right, from working in the yard or whatever. It's one thing if you lose like a layer of skin, right?
Yeah.
But if that becomes a couple layers or 3 layers of skin, now you're talking about an actual really, a problem. So
No kidding.
One of the support team, a guy named Jed was the team medic, came out of the special forces there in the UK, and he was absolutely terrific. He couldn't have been, when I got injured, he couldn't have been nicer. He had a magic bag of medicine, and eventually it was like, okay, I can't, probably not going to keep giving you these things, but but he did everything possible to keep everybody on track. So it was really exceptional.
Oh man, it just well, you're a better man than we are. But,
yeah, I was going to say, Bill, what have you done to help other people?
Brutal. I mean, I could write a check, a real small one, but the actual blood, sweat, and tears involved, I don't know if I've got it in me. My mom's a big Lawrence fan. She's got books about him all over the place. And also after he left, he was sort of forcibly taken out, which blew my mind. But then he tried to get into the Royal Air Force or something under an assumed name, and that didn't work. And then he tried under another. He really loved the entire experience of he was almost like an action addict or something. But he was an interesting dude.
Fascinating character. But again, it was he was kind of part of this Arab army, right? And that led by these the key sheikhs of the time, in a sense. And so, yeah, it worked out extremely well. And we're going, we've got a couple of follow-on, events to help celebrate, back out to Aqaba in mid-April. The King of Jordan is coming out to,
oh my God,
break the thing. And then in May, we're having a big event in London, again, to try to keep this thing moving, to raise awareness. And I think the idea is probably once every 2 years, maybe. Probably not on an annual basis, the club will come up with a major event like this to keep the ball rolling, right?
I'm sure Kevin Godlington knows all of those guys.
Who's that?
I'm sure Kevin Godlington knows all of those guys.
Yeah, there's a name I haven't heard in years.
I haven't talked with him in a long time. This is too inside baseball for everyone, but he's a mutual pal of ours, SAS. Well, Joe, as far as and the only thing that I learned, happy 20th anniversary. Good on you for conning M into going to Austin for the anniversary so that you could hit the road.
Yeah.
Look how proud he is of himself.
That's love.
That was a little obvious, I guess. But I know, 20 years. Good Lord. It seems like people say that all the time, but it seems like a couple of days, right? I won the lottery. My coverage, I definitely, I ended up way ahead of the game with my wife. So
I would say Joe says the same thing about Douglas, and she's so right. I mean, whenever she's not looking, he's rolling his eyes.
Speaking of sexy camels.
I mean, we were talking about camels.
Wait, speaking of ass blisters.
Okay.
More than 100 U.S. spies are fired for sexually explicit chats.
Oh, yes.
Tulsi Gabbard says. Now, really, I'm just going to read this stuff because am I weird for not thinking this is so bad?
You've been around me too long.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, okay, essentially, Tulsi Gabbard has fired more than 100 U.S. spies after these chats were unearthed on an official government instant messaging forum. The U.S. Director of National Intelligence confirmed she has dismissed agents across 15 spy agencies. Baker, I didn't know we had that many.
Oh, sure. The DNI is made up of dozens of
Wild.
organizations. Now, I'm going to jump right in here.
Please, go ahead.
Being mindful of time, I'm going to jump right in here and say it's a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
Saying there's 100 spies. That's not what these people did, right? These people were in HR positions and IT positions and logistics positions and admin positions. Look, still important within the community, but it's not like you've got your operators who are out in the field for the agency, thinking, well, okay, I finished for the day. Now I'm going to go home. I'm going to get on this internal chat net because you had to have access to this. It's like an internal group discussion thing that had been set up by NSA, right? As part of their DEI process, right? To provide a forum internally for people to chat about their goddamn angst or whatever the hell they thought was important. And it turned into this shit show.
Real human nature.
It's not like you had, guys on at the pointy end of the spear out there working operations who were thinking like, okay, now I'm going to go back and talk about my angst.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification, because you're right. The headline is super misleading.
Yeah.
But also the tone of this is super judgy. Okay. Calling the messages disgusting. They were casually discussing fetishes, artificial genitalia, group sex, and more. I call that empowering. Okay?
Thank you.
That's right.
You.
One person discussed surgery that allowed them to wear leggings or bikinis without having to wear a protective piece of clothing under it. Well, that's just, I don't know, mechanics.
I don't even understand what the surgery would have been.
Possibly
cutting off their wiener.
Yeah, but possibly gender reaffirming surgery.
Okay, but why didn't they just say that? It was too convoluted.
Bill, you aren't a spy.
That's true.
The conversation veered toward laser hair removal. Getting my butthole zapped by a laser was shocking. Now, see, that's just a fact. I don't think that's especially explicit.
Well, they should have been a Gitmo back in the day. Then
truly.
Oh, God. No, I'm kidding. I am kidding. If you had put that if you, sir, had put that on the chat service, Tulsi would be very upset with you.
You're out of here.
You just know that's gonna end up wrong. No, I'm kidding. Nobody was zapping people's buttholes with Gitmo.
Unless they requested it.
Another person said, "Look, I just enjoy helping other people experience boobs." This was a message about estrogen injections. So
I loved your reaction.
It's just, and then, Gabbard posts on X, "This behavior is unacceptable, and those involved will be held accountable. These disgusting chat groups were immediately shut down." It's, to me, that wasn't that disgusting. Maybe they left out the worst stuff, but
they probably did. But also, look, this is, Hey, I have no problems with saying this is what you guys are doing, because I for a fact they were doing this on company time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also, look, the intel services out there that are aligned against us, whether it's the Chinese intelligence services or the Russian, Iranian, a variety of countries, right? Because they're all looking for the same thing. They're all looking to recruit sources of information that can tell them shit about U.S. plans, intentions, national security concerns. There's a reason why you have to do background investigations, polygraphs, lifestyle concerns. There's a reason for that, because this is not a community of nations out there, and there are countries and services out there looking to hose us, right? And so they're looking for people who they could probably get leverage on, and that's the sort of person in one of these chat groups that I would definitely focus on, because I'm going to think there's some issues here, and I'm going to try to figure out what buttons to push, unless they've had their buttons removed. That's
now, but Baker, what if all of this was actually just code? Ooh. What if this disgusting conversation, butthole really meant person of interest, or You know, laser hair removal was 86ing a person. You know, what if that's just a way for them, knowing that there are other intelligence agencies throughout the world who want to know our shit? What if that's them trying to cover up, you know, what they're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I can neither confirm nor deny whether you're on the right track here, but I think I do sense another episode of MK Improv coming up.
Heck yeah.
You had me a lizard butthole. You had me a lizard butthole.
Well, now butthole was one of my aliases back in the day.
During the Star Wars times. Well, listen, like, what about the CIA has gotten hit by, I guess, those that have been ranking officers within the last 2 years, like they're new to the position, and there have been mass layoffs as far as that's concerned. What have you been hearing about that? Do people think this is justified? Anytime the kind of hits that the intelligence community have been getting so far certainly worries me to a certain extent.
Or does this happen with changes of power like every time? Is this new or not?
Nothing really ever happens in terms of trimming down the government, right? Whether you're talking about the intel community or any other part of the government. So everybody comes in and talks about, well, with a new administration, we're getting rid of bloat and we're going to make it more efficient and we're going to, and that never happens, right? So you can argue with the methodology, perhaps, or the messaging, the way that they're doing things sometimes with the new administration. But the idea is sound, because there's no doubt about it. The bureaucracy is top heavy. There's way too much fat in there. And that includes, every organization should be going through and saying, are we operating as effectively, as efficiently as possible? Are we focused on what we need to be focused on? And so with the agency, with the CIA, look, they do what a lot of government organizations do, what a lot of corporate operations do. They rank their personnel constantly, right? So you always have personnel reviews. And so they know who the bottom 10% performers are. And so part of this is they're just finally culling the bottom 10% because there's actually some movement here. There's actually kind of forcing the issue, saying enough with the government inertia. And so the bottom 10%, fine. If you're in that regard, I'm sorry, but clearly maybe you'd be happier or better at some other job out there. And then, then they're focused on making sure that they are dealing with the right people. You're not going to cut loose somebody with 20 years of field experience and a couple of hard languages, right, under their belt. That's not who's going, right? But every organization, including the agency, has a variety of elements or operations within it, right? Whether it's HR, whether it's IT, whether it's admin, whether it's finance, it doesn't matter. There's all those same elements, and so that's where, for the most part, they're looking. They're not saying, and these people that are being let go also are in sort of what they call the probationary period. So yes, that's your first 2 years, right? And there's no guarantee you're going to make it through those first 2 years. And over the years, have they let people go? Absolutely. Who, after that 2-year probationary period, they're saying, look, it's just not working out, right? This is not for everybody. So I don't have any issues with it as long as they're focused on not impacting the effectiveness of the organization. And it's not like some Doge kids are coming in there and telling, the organization who to call, right? Because they don't have access to that information. They don't have, classification, to tickets to look at some of this stuff. But, they've been given a remit saying you're going to trim this down. And so internally, they're making those decisions.
Perhaps
just give baby her bottle. Just give it to her.
The people who are being dismissed are the ugly ones, because
oh boy,
turns out 81.3% believes that pretty privilege exists at work. Apparently, attractive workers earn $20,000 more annually than unattractive colleagues. 8 in 10 people surveyed. And Bill, this was weird. It was a survey of 1,050 Americans.
Usually 2,000.
Yeah.
With these things, yes.
Well, I guess the other 950 were ugly. 8 in 10 people surveyed believe attractive coworkers are more likely to be promoted, hired, or given raises. Even more telling, 66.9% of people have actually seen someone treated unfairly or talked about negatively because of how they look. and 83.4% think colleagues who put more effort into their appearance are seen as more capable professionals. Now, Baker, that is something I have been told since I was young. You dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So for a while, I dressed like a trophy wife because that was what I inspired to. And I'm halfway there. I got a poop trophy behind me.
There you do.
They also go into this study about people ranking their own attractiveness, and turns out, no surprise here, CEOs rate themselves like a 9 out of 10 on the attractive scale.
Goddamn right.
Yeah. Now, Baker, I assume that you have been the victim of pretty privilege. You just get promotions and you're expected to do all the front-facing work because you're so pretty. Tell me about how difficult that was for you.
Yeah, it's a burden
Yeah.
that I think a lot of people can't understand. But I think, look, I agree with the article and the premise. I mean, I signed on with the agency when I was recruited at the CIA. I think my starting salary was like $32,000 more than some of the goblins that were in my recruiting class. So I can't argue with the premise of this story, and I think it's a human thing, right? I think it does make sense. Is it right? Is it right? Well, yeah, I think it's right.
Yeah.
It's not your fault that God loves you more, I think is what you're trying to tell people.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a horrible state of affairs that this is the case. I think it's just awful. And as a CEO of my own company, who is consistently by staff given a 10 out of 10 attractiveness rating, I do what I can to try to level the playing field.
I do wonder if there is a difference between operatives like yourself and the analyst desk goblins in the agency as far as the looks are concerned. They want the people out in the field to sort of look more like Baker, right? And then the ones that are just actually doing the grunt work behind the desk, they all kind of look like this dude right here.
Yeah. So let's send this guy to a party, and then we'll keep the really smart people, the really capable people in headquarters to make sure that the work product is actually where it needs to be.
Well, then I wouldn't get that one either.
Well, I feel like we have talked about this before with the idea of, what do you call it, the honey pots.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
And, we've seen it in Bond films or a lot of those sort of spy films where you have the attractive woman who seduces and learns what she needs. But really, don't you want to be like the most average looking person possible? The kind of face where you're like, I don't remember. They're
blend in, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, that is really very effective. If you're that sort of person who just kind of glides through and, nobody really notices, look, if you've got some hot dame who's, running surveillance on some target, you're going to notice her, right? And so that's not helpful, but it's, the ability to blend in. Look, it does. I mean, there's a lot of things that you put into that. So it's not just, physical looks. There's a lot of things you can do to blend in or go gray or however you want to call it. So
go gray. I like
it
that.
is, it is, I guess I keep going back to the same word. It's a burden. And, but I have learned.
You're both the real heroes. As far as
I've learned to live with it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And the nice thing, Baker, about working next to goblins like Bill is that it only makes your number rise. My 8.5 is now a solid 75.
I'm right here, guys.
Look at Bill.
I'm right here.
Bill, you've taken heat for this for a long time.
Now say that to this little fella here.
Oh
say
my God! Oh, get it away!
I can hear you with my ears,
And
but I feel it in my baby heart.
Don't even lie and say that's adorable. That's not. That is disturbing.
Well, what's more disturbing that I'm 49 and my mom still has this up in the basement? That's even worse.
No, the most
Although it is in the
disturbing
basement.
is that you are in your parents' basement at 49 years
Yeah.
old.
Well, there's that, but
Yeah.
still, but the baby picture's adorable.
Shout out to New Jersey. Yeah, I've been staring at that thing right next to me this entire time while I'm listening to you guys talk about how gorgeous you are.
Hmm.
Did you want to get into the Gene Hackman stuff? Because I bet you Baker figured out all of this before it
Oh,
became
well, yeah.
public.
It's just an excuse to talk about him and his films. I just
Yeah.
rewatched with Douglas the Royal Tannenbaums, and
Ah, it's a
he's
classic.
just so great. But I think a lot of people at first, when news of his death came about, God, we just love conspiracies, and we really want to assume that there's foul play or something involved. I think because a part of us doesn't just want someone to die. So you're like, what? Why? And we
Yeah.
want it to be juicy because then it feels, what's the word? More.
Justified.
Yeah.
Never heard Juicy and Gene Hackman in the same sentence, but continue.
But yeah, so we have since found out that his wife and dog are both deceased. Turns out he was dealing with Alzheimer's for a while. His wife was sick. She got a flu that apparently you get from rat feces.
Yeah, mouse
Which-
droppings, rat droppings,
Yeah.
hantavirus, and it's they live in New Mexico and out there in that part of the country. You got a lot of desert rats and others, and so this it's a possibility. It's relatively rare.
Yeah.
But she was young; she was only 65, but she was the
Yeah.
primary caretaker. They didn't have anybody else helping out, and he was 95.
Yeah.
And like you said, suffering from Alzheimer's. He had heart condition. A variety of health concerns. And she apparently died, a week and a half before he did.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's a horrible thought that you just die alone in your house with your wife's dead body in the other room, and nobody. That is a completely depressing thought, right? And so I think the idea at the very beginning was, well, there's got to be foul play, like you said.
Yeah.
I wonder when, because I'm sure this is part of training, though, where they'll give you a particular scene and sort of have you fill in the blanks as to what exactly happened. Like, perhaps, I don't know if a scene exactly like this, where they just sort of give you, like, almost like one of those old 19th century dioramas of a murder, but you have to figure out exactly how it worked. Is there anything like that? Or when you see stories like this,
did you get dioramas?
Well, no, they would used to. There's this woman who famously made these little dioramas with dolls in them, and they would give them to British detectives.
When we were
Isn't that-
traveling.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. I don't know that it's a real thing, but I think I don't understand that question.
I'm going to find the story behind this woman that would make these little dioramas and use them, and people in Scotland Yard would use them to figure out murders when they were in training. But
You mean
whatever,
like a
you guys
game
don't
of-
like history.
like Clue. A game
Yeah,
of
a little bit.
Ooh.
Yeah.
From Gene Hackman to the desert. I can't do segues. Joe, go ahead and make fun of me. I mean, I thought you were bad at it, but I'm
bad.
very interested in this because we've talked about CIA recruiting in the past. America's preeminent spy agency will deliver presentations, or did deliver presentations, or actually will today, per this article, on solving issues creatively, like dioramas for the Scotland Yard, at the annual South by Southwest Music Festival and Tech Conference held in Austin, Texas. The CIA announced this last week. The typically tight-lipped agency said a CIA historian and one of the agency's public affairs officers will deliver the talk titled, I would so go to this, Mission Possible, the Spy's Guide to Creative Problem Solving. Quote, come learn how creative people problem solving has helped resolve complex challenges we've faced in protecting national security, and how you can apply creative thinking to your own seemingly impossible missions. The agency recently offered buyout offers to employees as part of President Trump and Elon Musk's efforts to shrink and reshape the federal government. Trump has long criticized America's intelligence agencies, and his CIA director, John Ratcliffe, has promised big changes. That was sort of a postscript to the otherwise overall thing that was the CIA is at South by Southwest. Baker, what do we think
Yeah,
of
that
this?
last little bit was kind of a non sequitur, wasn't it? It was.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
don't blame me, blame
You just kind of
Newser.
rolled into that. I think it just.
Well, but perhaps they're trying to say, well, this might be recruiting, and they might need to recruit. I don't know. But is this recruiting? I mean, I'm not even really clear as to what the purpose of this is, aside from it's going to be at this in creative conference adjacent to South by Southwest.
I think that was a question, Baker, but I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. Yeah, I'm very confused.
Next time we should just have a baby on asking questions.
I hate you.
So yeah,
I guess what is this? Is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, just really distilled it down to the essence of your question, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually at our headquarters a couple weeks ago, and I know the public affairs person who's going to be doing this presentation. She's terrific. So it's going to be a humdinger of an event. I think the idea is that, look, it is. I mean, it's an interesting thing because the agency goes through a decision-making process a little bit differently sometimes than others do, right? And we've learned a lot over the years about how to process information quickly, how to make decisions quickly. And so I think it's going to be an excellent presentation. And it's not really about recruiting. We're not really in a recruiting mode at this stage of the game, although you always have to be to some degree, but again, for the right roles within the organization, right? For the operations side of things. So, is it helpful in shedding a little bit of light and making the agency a little less mysterious? Sure. And that's not a bad thing in today's world. So I think that there is an element of that. But it really legitimately is also, look, we've learned a lot over the years about this process, and let's share a little bit of what we know because it could probably help out. I mean, I wrote an entire book about it, company rules, about how to make decisions and the things that I learned from the agency and how to, whether it's building a company or just kind of working your way through life. So
available on Scribd, don't you know?
But they didn't ask you to go talk. Brutal.
Well, no, these are active. Like the public affairs officer is active staff and everything. So
they were smart. They should have asked you.
Although Baker, this sounds like a really good
for it,
MK improv episode where it's like, I need to get into South by Southwest. How do I do it? What can we do? Oh, I know. Let me give a TED talk.
Yes.
To a whole bunch of people. So maybe there's an element of that as well. They just need to get into a certain area, but they need to be obvious, but not obvious. This
is pretty obvious, but I take your point. Yeah. Look, it's creative. It's a good idea. I think it's going to be very well attended because it is actually, extremely interesting. I know they're going to do a great presentation.
I'd love to go. I wish it was nearby Austin. I think that sounds fascinating.
I know. It's going to be really good. So, and I'm hoping that I think they are going to record it, and hopefully they'll make it available somehow on social media.
On TED.
Yeah, the agency has its own X page. They've had their own Twitter page for a while. So yeah, I think they realize you got to shine a little bit of light. And, they're never going to be completely transparent. That's not the point of an intelligence organization. But I think they realize that times have changed. They need to be a little more accessible.
Yeah.
Indeed, times have changed so much, Joe, that 30 years ago, people didn't know the NSA existed. And now, not only do we know, but we know that they like to get their buttholes lasered.
And thank God
so
for
that's
that.
how times have changed.
Not everybody at NSA.
No, everyone. I think that was implied.
It's not a requirement. It's not.
It's just the ugly people who need to get it done. The pretty people don't have to.
Well, yeah, I think pretty people, by definition, their buttholes are in better shape.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that. But it's a thought. I don't even know how we descended into this.
Wait, I'm looking right now. Yeah, you guys might be right.
Yeah.
Mine needs some upkeep.
On that note, let's end here.
On that high note,
Baker.
Yes.
Anything else you would like to plug and promote? We've done a wonderful job of doing it all throughout the show, but anything else?
No. It's just great to rejoin the cast of Mornin. And let's see, have we covered it? I think we have covered everything. You've pretty much that you did all the marketing for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bill, what do you got?
Well, I guess go to Bowery Boys Walks for this March's walking tour. Turtle Bay tours go on to that, and I'll blow your mind with all my historical fun facts on our New York walking tour. Joe, what do you have?
Stay tuned for a video of Bill asking me how New Orleans went. We're going to talk all about it. I'll show some pictures, and I think it's going to be a video only for YouTube members.
Nice.
That's a way for us to get more members. So
I like the way you think.
Good idea.
Yeah. You don't want to miss that. Or if you do, don't become a member.
Yeah.
Anyways,
you can go become a YouTube member, and then you can see the photos of Joe getting all the beads thrown at her.
Yeah, I was stealing it from children. That's how I got all of them. Baker, thank you so much for joining us. Really good to see you. And stay safe out there, okay?
I'll stay safe out there. Yeah, thanks very much, guys. I'll see you next time.
Oh, I'm sure glad that's over.
That's all for this episode of Mornin with Bill and Joanne.
I wasn't even listening. I was listening to podcasts.
Shut up, Bill.
Subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts.
Yeah, I wasn't listening either.
Very nice, Joanne. Touché.
For videos of this and other episodes, go to @MorninBillAndJoe on YouTube.
Bill, put the sword down.
Run, Joanne, run!
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We would do it for you. Okay, that's a lie.
I never liked your show. Sorry, wasn't listening. See ya.